Hi. Cool. Hey, everyone. We are just chatting together. We're just going over our book study notes, and we all took the self-compassion test. In the book, Self-Compassion, in the very beginning, she talks about, what page is it on? Page 15.
I'm gonna pull it up in my browser so I can pull up like what the questions are too.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Be like, oh.
Mm-hmm. Yippee. I do notice though, when I went to the test, it says click on how self-compassionate you are. I don't think that's the same verbiage though, when you actually go on the site today, correct? Because I did it today and it didn't say how self-compassionate.
Yeah, it is different.
I think it says take the self-compassion test now. When you go.
Something like that.
You look confused, Rayah. Oh, are you looking at the screen? Oh.
Yeah,
I thought you were looking at me.
And I
Me too.
I kept muting it. No, I forgot I had muted it, and I was like, I can't answer. Damn it! I gotta switch back over to the other thing. No, I was just gonna pull it up so we could look and see what it was called, but where's the thing?
Yeah, the website is www.self-compassion.org.
And there's a lot of great resources there too. I clicked around beyond just the test. There's some ideas for exercises and workshops and other people she's working with. So that was a really unexpected find for that.
I did notice that.
Oh, there it is. It says test your level of self-compassion.
Okay.
And it's on the right-hand side of the screen.
I had to scroll down a little bit too to get to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. So do we want to talk about like chapter 1 at all? Like just what you guys thought of just even the opening part of the book so far?
Sure, yeah. I mean, we could, do you want to talk about our scores on the self-compassion quiz?
Mm-hmm.
Because I got a 2.5, which it tells you, what is that?
I printed that. I printed that part out too. 2.5.
Yeah.
2.5 indicates you are moderate.
Yeah, which is surprising. It's definitely not where I started out.
Good. What about?
I was 2.14 was my overall score.
Okay.
And where I scored the lowest, we can talk about this, is with the common humanity piece. I've never wrapped that into, how I think about myself and how other people are going through similar things and linking it that way. It's the way I feel about myself. I've thought, oh, I'm the only one who feels this way or something. I've never thought, oh no, other people go through this. So that's where I scored lower.
Okay.
What's the first one? SK is
self-kindness.
Self-kindness. Yeah, I scored a 2 in that one. Like that was my lowest.
Yeah.
I definitely have a hard time being kind to myself.
Please keep in mind, you guys, and this is just for people watching, I have been working on self-compassion for a long time. And I practice mindfulness on a daily basis. So please do not feel threatened. And I'm not talking to y'all. I know y'all know. Please do not feel threatened by my score. Please. I worked really on a daily basis for a long time. So my overall score was 4.27. And my self-kindness, which I love because when I did this a long time ago, was horrible, but my self-compassion was 4.8. And it makes me giddy and happy and fuzzy inside because of where I started. But it just goes to show, like, it's possible to see it later. And she suggests
Exactly.
Yeah. And she suggests when you take the test in the beginning, take it again at the end to see like where you fall.
Yeah, my self-kindness was 3.6.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, so it's not too bad, but there's a couple of other areas that, like I said, are lower.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. My isolation, I don't, my isolation was 1.5 and over identification was 1.50, but I don't really know what's over identification. Do you know what that even means?
Less self-compassion.
Over
I haven't looked at the breakdown of that. I don't remember reading much about over-identification.
Yeah, I mean, me neither, now that I'm looking at it. But
I'm gonna dummy take the quiz really quick so that it'll pull up like what the meanings are, because it doesn't really tell you until you take it.
Well, I'm looking at my actual scores right now, and I don't see much of an explanation of each topic unless I'm missing something.
yeah, I don't either. I printed off the whole page. I mean, the test at the end, I printed it. And I don't see anything that
I think that over-identification, though, is where we wrap up our identity in our flaws and think, because I messed up, or something didn't go the way that I hoped, that is now who I am. I am a failure because I failed, kind of. I think that's what it is.
that makes sense.
Okay, and it says in the book, it points us to page 83 to 85 for over-identification.
Ooh. 83.
Okay.
The title of that page is Running Away with Painful Feelings. Oh.
It's the story about he loaned his car to his mom, and it has the fancy keyless entry. And they were so stuck in the fact that, I don't know that this is ever going to work, and how does this keyless entry thing, happen and everything, so that when they parked the car, left, and came back, they kept trying to get into the car and it wouldn't work, and they were convinced that, see, these newfangled things don't work, and it turned out that they were trying to get into the wrong car. It wasn't even a Toyota. And so she points out that they were so lost in their reactions that neither of them thought to take that very sensible next step, which is to make sure that they were seeing things the right way.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really interesting. It's amazing to me how you could read a whole book and years later you don't, like, I don't remember that story at all.
No, isn't it sad? I wish there was a way to read books and, like, by osmosis, just remember everything.
Right. I mean, it definitely kickstarted my self-love, though, for sure. In 2014, it definitely, what? I'm supposed to love myself more than I love all these other people? That's wild. Oh, I like the page 4 in the beginning, which talks about distorting mirrors. How she describes, like, when her husband walks in the door and she's like, did you do this? And he's like, well, dang, can you say hello first? And you, like, kind of make up these stories to, like, fit if you want to be in a grumpy mood, you make up these stories when your spouse or person walks in the room to, like, make it their fault,
Yes. I definitely I fall prey to that. I used to be really guilty of that. I still fall prey to it. I think we all do. But, like, now it's almost like this fear of mine because I know how, like, I have mental illnesses like ADHD and trauma and stuff. So like I'm very aware that I have limitations, and sometimes I like over-identify those limitations, and I'm just like, well, I don't want to step out of line. I want to be really careful. And wait, am I putting the wrong feelings on them? Like, am I interpreting that correctly? Or it's probably just me. It's probably just me. And so it's like the balance, because so often I'm just like, no, the problem's probably with me nowadays, instead of like considering like, oh, well, maybe it was reasonable for them to remember that thing or whatever, because you did ask them 4 times or whatever. Not like Richie's rad, like no husband jabs or anything like that, but just like, yeah, it's like it's such a balance, but also, yeah, we can get so tied in that narrative because it's like our identity is like, well, if I have to back out and admit that I'm wrong, are they still going to love me because I made a mistake? And it's scary because it's like, if I don't think I'm worthy of compassion or love, then I'm going to be really afraid that when I make a mistake, I'm going to get dropped. But yeah.
Yeah. I like how she says, like, even if we do manage to get our act together, the goalpost for what counts as good enough seems to always remain frustratingly out of reach. We must be smart and fit and fashionable and interesting and successful and sexy. Oh, and spiritual too. Yeah, it's a lot. The amount of pressure we put on ourselves is way beyond what we think it's other people judging us, but the amount of judgment that I used to put on myself and still do is mind-blowing. Oh, I need to point out this though. She says, the result of this line of thinking is sobering. Millions of people need to take pharmaceuticals every day just to cope with daily life. Insecurity, anxiety, and depression are incredibly common in our society, and much of this is due to self-judgment, to beat ourselves up when we feel we aren't winning the game of life. Didn't you point out this part? I thought you did in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I just think sometimes people need pharmaceuticals, and that's just how it is. There's a chemical in their brain, and they need that thing to help them. And the way this is said, and there's a couple of other places where she brings it up later in the book too. It makes it sound like maybe if you just like work a little harder at self-compassion, that you'll not need those medications anymore. But there are times when it's a necessary thing, and there's nothing wrong with it, and not doing anything wrong by taking them. In fact, you're taking care of yourself by taking them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I just really wanted to and this is the thing with the book, there are some things that coming at it through a lens of anti-racist, which the three of us are, working toward being anti-racist individuals. There are some things that will come up, that we'll discuss, that, this book has a lot of great information in it, and it's okay if there's stuff in there that we don't necessarily agree with. Yeah, I'm somebody who I've been on antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds when I needed them, and then work with my doctor to get off of them. And yes, it's true that you can, if you don't know how to self-love, it can make your things worse. However, there are times where in my life, I had to have that because there were so many things happening in my life, I could not function, and I had to have help. And there's nothing wrong with that. So.
Absolutely.
For sure. Sometimes we really need that extra support while we're building up the coping skills and the habits and all those things. And like I'm on meds now. Like I don't necessarily have any immediate plans of trying to get off of them because of everything in my life. Plus ADHD meds will probably be something that I will need to have access to for the rest of my life, just because it will always be something that's there. But it's like meds are there's just like this, either people, they get demonized or they get like oversimplified or whatever, and it can be really hard. It wasn't particularly triggering for me, interestingly enough. I didn't immediately go, oh, but it was like, that's really oversimplifying things. But then it's like pharmaceuticals, like, they're not just for depression, anxiety, they're also for like psychosis and other thing, OCD, and all those types of things, which, like, it just seems like an oversimplification. And when we oversimplify, we forget about people who are in the margins. And, the three of us are not about that. But,
Mhm.
Like we've said, like, everybody is on a journey, and I'm not trying to like crucify her or anything for like not being perfect on that. But like, yeah, it can be really hard when things get oversimplified, because you're like, wait, what about me over here? Like, and it can make it intimidating when you're trying to start this self-compassion journey. If you're like, well, what I need meds. Is
Mhm.
that, what if I can't get to where I don't need meds? Does that mean I'm not gonna be good enough, or did I not do self-compassion hard enough, or what? But that's, and I'm sure she wasn't like writing it thinking like, oh, everybody for all time. But it's just one of those things that it's good to talk about for sure.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Um, Another thing that kind of stood out to me that I really love about chapter 1 is when she starts to talk about like Buddhism, how she started to look into the Buddhist aspect of things. And she talks about on page 7, kind of like in the middle, she says, if you are continually judging and criticizing yourself while trying to be kind to others, you are drawing artificial boundaries and distinctions that only lead to feeling of separation and isolation. And I agree with that a little bit, a lot. I know lots of people that, me being one of them, tend to be kinder to other people than to myself. I was like constantly mama bearing and loving everyone and not giving that same to myself.
Yeah, and I think she was talking about it. She came to that realization through Buddhism, and I identify with the Christian tradition, which also has a lot of really lovely strands around loving ourselves, before taking care of other people. And I think sometimes, there's almost like a toxic Christianity where people think, like what you were saying, we just love everybody, and we don't love ourselves, and we don't look at ourselves. Jesus was so self-sacrificing, things like that. But when you really look at, what did Jesus do? Jesus practiced self-compassion and mindfulness, and went out into the garden and took time by himself, and allowed people to wash his feet and do those kinds of things, just as much as, that ultimate sacrifice. And so, and she points this out, that the ultimate goal of most spiritual practices, or traditions, is that loving one another. And so I think it can be found in those, I don't know, just those faith traditions that we know and love the most.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
We are taught that we shouldn't complain, just carry on. If we're in a difficult or stressful situation, we rarely take time to step back and recognize how hard it is for us at the moment. Yeah.
Where was that you just read?
That was,
Was that still on 7?
it was 11.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, I mean, we didn't talk about this. We talked about this, I think, last week. We talked a little bit about just the way that the houseless person was talked about a little bit.
Oh,
And
yeah,
how
yeah.
it was a little bit dehumanizing. And it was like, okay, we kind of get the point that he's, you know, in a state of disarray and in
Do
a
you want to
state
read
of
that part?
sure, yeah. Let's see. It's kind of a long because she kind of like
Or which?
goes a couple of times.
Oh, okay. Or which part specifically stands out to you?
So like because we're doing a video anyway. But like,
Hmm.
so we have this whole page where she's off and on talking about it, but like, down,
Hmm.
and she's already talked about how he looks in disarray and stuff. But
Hmm.
then when she gets down to the bottom, she says, "Of course, that might be the moment when you harden your heart completely. Your own fear of ending up on the street causing you to dehumanize this horrid heap of rags and beard." And like, when she said that, it was just like, oh, like
Mm,
that hurts. Is that how you see him? Like, and that you think
mm,
that we see him? Like,
mm,
maybe, maybe your heart is harder than you think a lot of ours is, or maybe like I don't know. It just felt really, it felt really kind of ugly, and I don't think it was intentional. I think she's just trying to drive the point
mhm,
home that we
mhm.
often look down on people in those situations. But it was just a little bit like,
Mm. Did you feel that way, Misty? I didn't feel like the dagger pain, but I can see how you would see that for sure.
Well, it's also like the perspective of you know, she's the one that's sitting in a situation where she's never been in that place of needing money, being houseless, not having a way, you know, anywhere to go to clean herself, and assuming that the audience that's reading it is also going to be from that
Mm,
perspective. And so, yeah, it did stick out to me too, as far as, you know, um, yeah, needing a place to live is not a terrible, it doesn't make somebody worthless. Um, and there was definitely some judgment in that passage I heard too.
yeah, yeah. I definitely don't. When I see someone who's homeless, I don't see them as she described at all. I don't like you. There's something heap of pile or whatever she said. I'm like, okay, okay. Wow, that's deep. But
right? And I definitely wouldn't feel like the urge to describe somebody like that, like to just to think that about someone. I would be like, oh my god, we need to call for help. This person looks like they're just in a heap and, you know, like dressed in
mhm,
rags and just all scraggly. It wouldn't be like, that horrid pile. You know what I mean?
mhm,
Like, it would be
mhm.
such a different situation where I would even like use those terms to describe somebody or think of somebody like that. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Do you want to talk about why she was like what she was referencing? Because she was talking about imagining, if you see that homeless person, imagine what you're thinking and then flip it and think about them like with eyes of compassion, right? That's pretty much.
yeah, totally. She's talking about like our immediate reaction being to think less of them and not have compassion because of, you know, the fear. Part of it is like she's talking about the fears that we have about being in that position, and we don't want to be in that position, so we're so scared that we dehumanize him and um, can't feel compassion because, you know, it's also very much tied to capitalism and stuff too, and our worth being tied to our ability to have money or produce and things like that. So it's like if someone's poor, they did bad things or they weren't good. And so I definitely can't identify with a poor person because like that would mean I'm not good and or I'm not doing the right thing. And so it's definitely it's hard when we look at people who have less than us because then it also feels like, well, if I believe that, you know, I have privilege and that's part of the reason I have what I have, then maybe I should be doing something to equalize that. Or if I believe that it is based on merit, then I am in a higher position and I deserve this extra money or whatever. And it's like it's a difficult place to come out of and to like walk in the discomfort of, yes, I do have privilege and there are things that I have that are more than other people and I do really want to help those people, but I also like if I give everything away then I will also be in the same position that they're in and I can't help people. Like, and so it's a difficult conversation to have, but her point is about having compassion on people who are in that position and not looking at them with disdain, um, and like what might be in their story that brought them to this point and all the different reasons that someone might be houseless. Um, like when Richie was volunteering at the overnight shelter, there were so many stories that people would sit down and tell him. There was one guy who lost his daughter and his wife in a drunk driving accident. And after that, he just lost it and couldn't handle his life and just could not take care of himself and just was like, couldn't handle things. And I don't know if he had ended up turning to substances after that to cope or if he just was like mental break and couldn't handle, but he ended up on the streets because of that situation. And it's like that, I mean, and to think about, you know, the judgment that people get is just so heartbreaking. So it's a super great reminder for self-compassion. It was just, my only problem really with it was like kind of the angle that she was coming from, and it was just a little painful to read. That's really.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you guys think of the exercises? Or did you think anything of them?
I thought through them at the time. I read through them and answered the questions in my mind, but I didn't do it as dutifully as some of them say to do.
Yeah, like the exercise one, it's how do you react to yourself and your life? And it asks you questions like, how do you typically react to yourself? And this is page 13. And there's like bullet points. And it says things like, what types of things do you typically judge and criticize yourself for? Appearance, career, relationships, parenting, and so on.
All of those, yes.
All of
yes,
those.
yes.
I didn't write my answers on that down, but I definitely like mentally went through and was like,
Me too.
Yeah, that.
Totally.
It was a good one because it. So many times we feel overwhelmed by all the stuff going on that it's scary to like take stock of like where you actually are, and so it's like, okay, well, what types of things do I criticize myself about? If I want to fix that, I have to like even start asking myself questions and exploring these things. So it is super helpful.
For sure. Another one is, what type of language do you use with yourself when you notice a flaw or a mistake that you've made? Do you insult yourself, or do you take a moment or take a more kind and understanding tone? That was my number one thing that I would do at my worst depression. Was my negative self-talk was really, really, really bad, which is why I'm now a mindfulness coach, because I want to help people with their thoughts in their mind. What about you guys?
My self-talk is a little sneakier because I don't say bad things to myself, but what I do is, okay, well, how can I make that better? How can I make this better? And it's always like plotting and planning. How can I be better? How can I improve this or that?
Perfection.
Yeah. Instead of going, well, you know, you didn't do this and you're stupid or whatever. It's more about, I'm not where I want to be.
That is sneaky. That's really sneaky. Because it's like, no, I'm motivated. It's motivating to do that, actually.
Yes.
I'm motivating, but no. It can be, but it can be really sneaky and bad.
Yes. There's a balance that you have to have with all of it.
That's right. Yeah. Any of those other bullet points stand out to one of you?
I think one thing to talk about would be the one, what are the consequences of being so hard on yourself? Does it make you more motivated, or does it tend to make you feel discouraged and depressed? And I think that's something that's really hard, because I think it's hard even to be honest with myself about that, because it's like, I want to be like, well, I just do it so I'm more motivated. But it's like, is it actually just hurting me? Like, do I actually feel better after that? Or do I feel like a bag of shit and like I have to somehow do something to make up for my lack, you know? And it's
what page is that on?
On 14, it's the second bullet point down.
Oh, okay.
And so like just like thinking about the consequences of continuing in that self harm or self hatred or however you want to call it, like that does have a cost to you, and it will kill you faster too. Like it will take a toll on your mental health, and your mental health is very intimately connected with your physical health. They go hand in hand, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and so it will cost me in the long run if I can't, or if I, you know, choose to not at least try to work on it, you know, and try to flip that a little bit, you know. It's like that's a serious thing.
Yeah, and I can't remember. She actually points that out at some point where we think it's really helpful and it's hard to give up because we think it's helpful. We think it's actually motivating us. We think that it's gonna get us to those places and help us be that person we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not always convinced that we should give it up. Must be in another chapter because I'm not seeing it. I know I underlined it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's in chapter 2, maybe means to an end, on like 28 maybe. Um, because yeah, that was such a good portion just to be talking about, like it really hurts you too. So even though you just want to hide in the corner and be like, it's fine, I'll be okay, it's fine, right, Amira? It's fine, it's fine.
Oh my
I say that all the
gosh.
time.
I'm always like, Rayah, it's
It's
not
not fine.
fine. Stop saying that. It's fine. Whatever. It's fine. No, it's fine, man.
It's like, well, if it's, I mean, like, obviously, I could overreact sometimes. I'm not going to be perfect. But if it's really something that's not fine, it's not just necessarily something I could or should just brush under the rug, because it could contribute to harm.
Yep.
Yeah, it's okay to say it's not fine. It's not okay. I don't know why we have that in our society that that's what we say.
Oh, it's fine. They did this. Oh, it's fine. No, it's not fine. Oh,
That's not okay.
I'm the
Yeah.
queen. It's not fine.
You might be able to move past it and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
have good coping skills or whatever is needed to, but it doesn't mean it's fine or okay.
Yeah.
You know, something a long time ago, I don't know how I learned it, but when people do something to you and then they apologize, if it's something that really bothered you, you can accept the apology, but you don't have to say it's okay. Because maybe it wasn't okay, you know. And that's something I use with, you know, interpersonally sometimes when it's like, well, I mean, I don't make a deal out of it, but I just watch my language. Like, you know, I understand why that happened or what you were thinking, but I'm not going to say it's okay. You know, do it again.
Say,
or whatever.
thank you for apologizing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just kidding.
No, but don't treat me like that again, or don't do that again. Yeah.
It's really good.
That's like the whole boundaries topic, which, oh my lord, is such a fun and boundless topic. Boundaries are so good and so important.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking forward to doing self-compassion with both of you, this book, and with all of the audience.
Yeah. Exercise 2, I could not do. I was not.
Tell me, what's exercise 2?
So exercise 2 is you write a letter, exploring self-compassion through letter writing, and you're supposed to try thinking about an issue that tends to make you feel inadequate or bad about yourself: physical appearance, work, relationship. How does this aspect make you feel about yourself inside? Scared, sad, depressed, angry? What emotions come up? Please try to be as emotionally honest as possible. Try to feel your emotions as they are, no more or less. And then part 2 is, now think of an imaginary friend who is unconditionally loving, accepting, kind, and compassionate. Imagine that this friend can see all your strengths and weaknesses. And she goes on about how this friend feels about you. And you're supposed to write a letter to yourself from the perspective of this imaginary friend, focusing on the perceived inadequacy that you tend to judge yourself for. And then basically I was like, I can't be that nice to myself.
Oh, look at you going into full laughter.
Oh yeah, uncomfortable.
Oh my goodness. So this was a couple weeks ago, right? So did you today you still feel like you couldn't do it today? Not literally, but
Well, maybe. I was thinking if I it might be good to maybe not start on the biggest thing. Maybe start on something a little more minor, and that doesn't feel so emotional or isn't such a blow to my ego.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. For sure. What about you, Misty?
Yeah, I started a project like this, and of kind of writing about my life and writing about my experiences, and I got triggered enough that I stopped the project. So I'm a little nervous about this one too, actually. I just read through it and I thought, yeah, that'd be a good thing to do. But I should do it, right?
Yeah, I've definitely done this one. And it really does kind of soften you a little bit,
How was the experience? How did it make you feel when you did it, Amira?
From what I can remember, I had the same reaction both of you had in the beginning, and it took me a couple weeks to do it. But once I did it, it made me like it was almost like the first time I saw compassion to myself in a way, like self-compassion afterwards. But it took me a little bit to get through it, I think, from what I could remember. I definitely think when the time is right, people should do it,
Yeah, it's definitely one that I want to do and try, at least to attempt. It's like I don't get all the way through it, fine, but at least give it a go because it does seem like a very valuable exercise for sure.
She has it on the website too. All the exercises are on there, and so this one's exercise 3 on the website.
Oh, okay.
Just kind of cool. And she has them all there.
Nice. So what do you guys think of her having these, they're kind of hard. That's another thing that kind of shows her privilege. I feel like emotional privilege, I guess, because typically doing something this hard in the beginning of a book, that's enough to make someone be like, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. So hopefully people, how we're doing this right now, kind of just like talking casually about it, will soften a little bit those who are struggling, because that can be really intimidating, having this kind of work in the very beginning of the book.
Well, and we talked about how, sometimes we won't read, even us as the facilitators of the conversation might not read something, might not do the activities. And here's a perfect example of Rayah and I have not delved into this yet. And so we're all human. And this is the point where we have patience with ourselves, have compassion on ourselves, and we do it when we feel ready.
Exactly. There's no rush. There's no judgment. We're all here just trying to learn how to love ourselves a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and paying attention to those internal cues and stuff too. Like, okay, well, it's okay to have compassion for yourself when you're realizing and paying attention to, that actually is really feeling a little too much, and that's okay. Because it can be hard once stuff gets triggered to get calmed back down. And if you don't have a safe person to walk through some of this stuff with or emotionally support you through this, that could be hard too. So it's something to consider when you're diving into this work, is do you have people in your life also that can at least be there for you? Maybe they're not going through the book too, but at least can just give you a little extra support and stuff like that.
Yeah, someone you can say, hey, I'm working on this book. It's going to be hard. I just want to give you a heads up in case I need some extra love and support. It's a good idea. Any last words before we wrap up our first little self-compassion shindig?
No, I think not. That was really fun though. I mean, fun, but
I'm
like it was always
excited.
good to talk to you. It was a joy to hang out with you.
Yes, I think it's going to be great, and I'm just happy to have partners this time around.